It wasn't the sound of the chain breaking that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of the door whispering open, just moments after I'd sealed it myself. My name is Walter, and for 3 weeks last autumn, I was the temporary caretaker for Northwood High. It was unto a glamorous job the school had been, empty for nearly 20 years, and was slated for demolition. My only task was to clear out the remaining equipment and secure the building one last time before the bulldozers came. It was easy money, provided you didn't mind the oppressive silence. The atmosphere in Northwood was heavy. The cold seemed to radiate from the very concrete, and every footstep echoed with a lonely finality. The only sound of life was the dry, unsettling rustle of dust motes dancing in the faint beams of my halogen lamp. The trouble started on the main floor near the old cafeteria. There was a janitor's supply closet tucked away in a shadowed alcove. The door was heavy, made of varnished pine, and it never seemed to want to stay shut. Every time I passed it, the door would be slightly ajar, maybe an inch or two, offering a slice of absolute darkness. The first day, I just chalked it up to the building settling. Spent an hour clearing out the musty mops and half-empty chemical bottles. When I was done, I took a heavy-duty steel chain and a thick industrial lock from my kit. I wrapped the chain around the handle, bolted it tight, and gave the door a hard shake to be sure. It was sealed. The next night I arrived and the chain was slack. Not broken, but slackened, as if the door had briefly moved and then settled back, and the door, despite the lock, was ajar. The gap was slight, just enough to catch the light from my lamp, but it was open. A prickle of genuine fear traced my spine. I was the only one with keys to the building. I checked the perimeter, no forced entry. I reset the chain, making sure the lock was secure, and then I stood there, listening. The air was colder right near that door, carrying a faint, musty smell that wasn't quite mildew. So I listened. I heard it. A sound so quiet I thought it was the pipes. It was a soft, ragged sound, like someone trying to catch their breath after crying. It was weeping, rhythmic, quiet, and absolutely coming from inside the sealed closet. I shone my lamp directly at the gap. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding weak in the massive hall. The weeping stopped instantly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Whatever was in there knew I was listening. I backed away slowly, never turning my back on the door. I convinced myself it was just a draft creating an acoustic trick, or maybe a small trapped animal. The third night was the worst. I walked into the cafeteria, and my lamp beam caught the alcove. The heavy pine door wasn't ajar. It was wide open. The steel chain, which I had locked with a 3-digit combination padlock, was lying in a tangled heap on the floor. The lock was closed, but the metal had twisted and pulled apart at a weak link. I approached cautiously. The intense cold was hitting me in waves. Inside the closet, everything was disturbed. The mop was lying on the floor. The empty bucket was tipped over. And a small pile of rusted pipes I had intended to dispose of was now neatly stacked in the corner. But what drew my eyes was a small object lying in the dust by the mop head. It was a brass name tag, the kind students would clip to their book bags, engraved with the name Sarah K. I had never seen it before. Then I heard the sound again, clearer this time. The soft, rhythmic weeping. It was right next to me, just inside the wide-open door. I knew the room was physically empty. I had just inventoried it, but my brain screamed presence. I pointed my flashlight straight into the darkest corner. The light absorbed into the blackness like it was shining into a bottomless pit. The weeping stopped again. Instead, a sound came from the end of the hollowette, dragging sound, like heavy cloth moving across the tiles. And then, a child's voice, high and thin, whispered, not from inside the closet, but from the darkness behind me. Walter, that was the end of my contract. I didn't care about the money. I grabbed every tool I had, 2 crowbars, a dozen industrial zip ties, and a heavy wooden plank. Working in a blind panic, I jammed the crowbars into the door frame, wrapped the chains around the entire structure, and nailed the plank across the front, screwing it into the wall studs with every remaining screw I had. I sealed that door like a tomb, desperate to lock whatever was inside and keep it from ever finding its way out. I quit the next morning. A week later, I drove by Northwood on my way to a new job. The demolition crew had started clearing the parking lot, but the main building was still standing. I glanced over at the cafeteria entrance, specifically at the alcove. The closet door was still boarded and chained, just as I had left it. But my stomach plummeted when I saw the chain was no longer taut. The heavy steel chain was lying slack against the wooden plank. And despite the board and the crowbars, the pine door was pulled slightly outward, separated from the door frame by a thin, jagged sliver of darkness, and pinned right on the edge of the wood plank where I had hammered it shut was that tiny, possible brass name tag, Sarah K.